is a particular moment that almost no man ever admits to. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. It finds you in the middle of something completely ordinary. Maybe you are nursing a coffee at a corner table, moving through a crowded street, or standing somewhere at the edge of a conversation at a gathering. And then, without warning, you look up and a younger woman is looking directly at you, not glancing, not scanning the room, looking at you specifically. Something stirs inside you before a single conscious thought forms. It moves faster than language. Then your mind catches up, and it hits the brakes hard. You tell yourself it was nothing. You decide you must have misread it. You talk yourself out of what you felt, quietly and efficiently, because the alternative feels too risky. You bury it before anyone, including yourself, can notice. You move on. But something lingers, and that something matters. What you felt in that moment was not vanity. It was not wishful thinking dressed up as instinct. It was your body registering something real before your doubts had a chance to override it. I am not going to pretend that age is irrelevant. That would be dishonest, and you deserve honesty. Age is real. But the way age actually works in attraction is almost nothing like the story you have been handed. You have absorbed a particular narrative your entire life. That narrative says that because of when you were born, certain things are simply off the table. That you are automatically disqualified from being genuinely wanted by someone younger. That the race is already over before you lace up. But that narrative was never built on how human beings actually feel. It was built on noise, social commentary, and assumptions that have very little to do with what happens between two people in a real moment. And that noise has cost a lot of men something important, a real understanding of what they actually have to offer. There is one core reason a younger woman keeps returning to a man like you. It goes deeper than your financial position, your list of achievements, or the particular brand of confidence you project. We are going to get to that reason, but before we do, there is something she is probably not saying out loud, something she may not even be able to articulate to herself. She only knows how the air feels when she is near you. So let's start by clearing away the static so you can actually hear what is happening. You know exactly how the world responds to this dynamic. You have seen the raised eyebrows, the loaded questions, the assumptions wrapped in concern. You may have started agreeing with some of those voices without realizing it. There is likely a voice inside you that calls this foolish, that tells you it is some kind of midlife grasping, that says you are just lying to yourself because you cannot accept where you are in life. That voice sounds extremely confident. Most men simply take its word for it. But here is what that voice never mentions. Attraction is not arithmetic. It is not a social contract. It is something that fires in the nervous system. Your body's wiring does not consult a calendar before producing a feeling. When a woman is drawn toward a man, her inner self is not running a background calculation to check whether the age difference clears some invisible threshold. What she is actually responding to, far beneath the surface, are signals. She is reading whether she feels secure in your presence, whether you are a man with real roots or just someone playing a role, whether you are truly in the room with her or simply performing for the room, whether being near you makes her feel more like herself or less. Those signals have almost nothing to do with how many years are behind you. They have everything to do with what those years have shaped you into. The difficulty is not your age. The difficulty is that you have been measuring yourself using the wrong standard. You have been applying a scale designed for an entirely different kind of attraction, one built around speed, novelty, and a very particular kind of physical display. Measured against that, yes, you will always come up short. But that is not the scale she is holding. The things you have quietly apologized for, moving with a bit more deliberation, carrying more gravity, no longer needing to fight for your place in a room, those are not flaws to correct. They are the exact frequencies she is picking up. Some women hear those frequencies more clearly than anything else. Most men, regardless of age, never quite grasp what is truly moving beneath the surface when an older man and a younger woman feel something between them. The assumption from the outside is that she is tolerating the gap to gain something practical, that there is an invisible but permanent ceiling, that her feelings come with an expiration date built in. But that is simply inaccurate. For many women, particularly those who have moved through the more turbulent chapters of early adulthood, the qualities that accumulate with lived experience are not a compromise. They are the whole point. The years you have spent navigating difficulty are not an obstacle she is willing to overlook. In many cases, they are precisely why she is there. Consider what genuine life experience builds in a man who has actually paid attention. It builds the capacity to occupy a room without requiring it to revolve around him. It builds the ability to let things unfold rather than forcing them into shape. It builds a kind of density, not heaviness, but substance. The particular feeling that a man has weathered enough that he no longer needs to announce his resilience to anyone. He has a foundation that does not shift when the applause stops. Now consider what a woman is actually responding to at the deepest level. Not what gets social approval, not what photographs well. I am referring to the part of her that moves before thought does. That part is searching for that density, that interior stillness. A man who has nothing left to prove. Picture a young man entering a space. There is often an edge of competition about him, a need to register as significant. He might dominate the sound in the room because that is how he knows he is being seen. He has energy, and that energy can be entertaining, even magnetic. But then there is a different kind of man. He settles into his seat and smiles at something privately, without needing to share it with the room. He does not scan faces to measure how he is landing. His presence has a gravity that demands nothing. She notices that man. She may not immediately know why, but she does notice. And something in her, for the first time in a long while, allows itself to settle. Let's go further. Noticing is just the opening. What makes her still think about you 3 days later is something more precise. Many men believe that appearance is the primary currency, and while it plays a role, it is rarely the deciding factor, especially as women gain more experience. For many of them, the most compelling quality in a man is not what he looks like. It is what it feels like to be standing next to him. That feeling assembles itself from details she absorbs without any deliberate effort. She notices the pace of how you speak, whether your voice moves without urgency, not from indifference, but from the quiet assurance of a man who is not afraid of losing the thread. She notices whether you are talking to actually connect or simply to manage how you appear. She notices the pauses. A man who fears silence treats it like a structural failure and rushes to repair it. A man who is at ease lets the conversation breathe, lets there be space between words. She notices the quality of your attention. Do your eyes tell her she is a full person, not a surface to admire, or an audience to perform for? And then there is the question of authenticity. This one is subtle, but it registers immediately. When a man is managing his presentation, adjusting in real time to produce a desired impression, Something in her body picks up the effort. She cannot stop monitoring for inconsistency. It is taxing. It creates distance where closeness could form. But when a man is simply present as himself, when he is not sculpting his image in front of her, that vigilance in her dissolves. The tension drops. She discovers she has not glanced at her phone once. She is not waiting for something uncomfortable to arrive. She is not aware of being evaluated. She is just there, and she is breathing. She cannot produce a full explanation for why it feels different, but it does, and the difference is enormous. There is another quality that older men carry without recognizing its value. It is how they inhabit quiet. Most men treat silence like an emergency. A gap in conversation feels like evidence that something has gone wrong, and they scramble to patch it with a joke or a new story before the previous one has even landed. At some point, she will let the silence exist. Maybe she pauses to think. Maybe she simply stops talking for a moment. Your response to that silence tells her something she cannot get from anything you actually say. If you lurch forward and fill it, she registers that you are not settled, that you need movement to feel okay, that stillness makes you nervous. But if you can simply remain in that silence without urgency, you are communicating something extraordinary. You are telling her that you are comfortable inside your own skin, that the space between words is not a threat, that you do not require her to continuously tend to your comfort or reassure you that things are fine. You remain. You do not perform presence. You are just present. When you do this, something often happens. She draws closer. The silence becomes connective tissue, not empty space. This cannot be manufactured. You cannot study your way into it. It only exists in a man who has genuinely arrived at some degree of peace with who he is. A man for whom quiet has stopped feeling like emptiness and started feeling like a room he is comfortable living in. That brings us to the central point toward which all of this has been pointing. Everything above, the stillness, the presence, the ease with silence, is all evidence of one underlying thing. We are almost there. A younger woman who chooses an older man is not operating naively. She is not following an impulse without any grounding. In most cases, she is responding to actual knowledge, earned through actual experience. Many of these women have already done the conventional thing. They have been in relationships where the conditions looked right on paper, but felt wrong in the body. Partnerships where she was never quite at rest, where love was real, but peace was absent, where the man she was with would shift unpredictably, warm one moment and withdrawn the next, turning every disagreement into something that required her full emotional resources to survive. She spent months or years managing another person's unresolved interior, and she knows exactly what that costs. She felt the particular exhaustion of loving someone who had not yet become themselves. She does not assign blame. She simply knows she is not willing to return to that. So when she encounters a man who is already himself, who can hold a disagreement without turning cold, who does not require victory in every exchange, who is simply stable, her entire system responds. What she feels is relief on a very deep level. The particular loosening that happens in a body that has been bracing for a long time. When you disagree with her, and instead of withdrawing or sharpening, you simply say what you think with steadiness and without any need to overwhelm her, she feels the ground hold. When you do not ask her to diminish herself so that you can feel larger, she takes note. She might say to someone close to her later, "He is not threatened by me. He is not trying to manage me." What she means is that she feels safe. safe in a way she did not know she was missing until she felt it. She is not searching for a father figure. She is not replaying an old pattern. She is simply recognizing something she has wanted for a long time and finding it, finally, in you. This next part is the deepest layer. It asks something of you. There is one quality she is tracking above everything else, above your resources, your history, your appearance. She is watching to see whether you will allow her to be fully who she is. Most men, without ever intending to, create quiet pressure around women. They are most comfortable when she is easy, agreeable, light. When she is struggling or complicated or taking up more space, they subtly retreat. Their engagement depends on her remaining manageable. She reads this even when it is never spoken. So she adjusts. She softens her opinions. She contains her larger emotions. She makes herself easier to be around because she has learned that being her full self creates friction. She gets smaller over time. A man who is truly at home in himself does not do this. When she says something direct or a little challenging, he does not tighten. When she feels something big and does not hide it, he does not treat it as a problem requiring a solution. He simply makes room. He lets her be large without needing her to shrink back. Picture her offering a real opinion, something with an edge on it, something she is watching to see if it is safe to say. If you receive it without pulling away and without redirecting towards safer ground, if you just hold your position and stay open, she finally has her answer. You are someone she does not have to perform for. She does not need you to be without fault. She needs to be someone she can stop hiding from. And now we have arrived at the core of everything. This was never really about age. It was never about the number. At the foundation of all of it, she is asking a single question, not in words, but in the way her body responds when she is near you. That question is this: do I feel more fully like myself when he is in the room? Not more admired, not more desired, more herself. The version that is layered and contradictory and alive and not always convenient. She is asking whether your presence gives her room to grow or quietly asks her to stay small. And what you have been building across your entire life, without necessarily knowing you are doing it, is the capacity to be a man who gives people room. That is genuinely rare. When she is around you, she stops calculating. She laughs the way she actually laughs. She can be quiet without worrying that she is being boring. She can disagree without bracing for impact. None of this is the result of something you performed. It is the result of something you stopped performing. The gap in your ages is just a fact. What she is actually responding to is the safety, the space, and the solidity of a man who no longer needs anyone around him to be less. That quality does not have an age. It is simply uncommon, and she recognized it in you. You may have spent time asking yourself whether you are too old for any of this, but that was never the right question. The right question is whether you are a man in whose presence someone else feels free to be real. If the answer is yes, and for men who have genuinely lived and learned it very often is, then your years are not a liability. They are what she is actually drawn to. The right woman does not tolerate your age. She values what your age produced. You do not need to announce this. You do not need to demonstrate it through grand gestures or carefully chosen words. You only need to be it. Stop apologizing for the years behind you. They assembled the man she is looking at. You are not a faded copy of a younger version of yourself. You are the full result of everything you have moved through. When you stop trying to compete inside a framework that was never yours, and simply let your own weight be felt, you will discover something that no one ever thought to tell you. She was never counting the years between you. She was measuring how solid you are. If what you have read here helps you see yourself more clearly and more fairly, there is more worth exploring. What comes next is not about tactics. It is about understanding what she is reaching for before she even has the words to ask for it.